Captain Jake Morrison stared at the datapad in his hands and felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. The coordinates were real, and the energy readings were impossible to fake. After 20 years of salvage work across the outer rim, he had finally found it. The drifting terror was out there waiting for him. Morrison walked across the bridge of his ship, Lucky Strike, and handed the datapad to his engineer. Zixtal took the device with one of her 4 arms while her compound eyes scanned the information. The insectoid being clicked her mandibles together in what Morrison knew was excitement mixed with fear. "Captain, these readings are beyond anything we have seen before," Zixtal said in her buzzing voice. "The power signature is still active after all these centuries. This ship should be completely dead by now." Morrison nodded and looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there in the black void between solar systems was the most famous ghost ship in known space. Every spacer in the galaxy had heard the stories. Ships that got too close never came back. Strange. Energy bursts that could be seen from light years away. A massive vessel that appeared on sensors but vanished when anyone tried to approach it. The navigation console beeped, and a cloud of purple gas swirled upward from the control station. Vorth materialized into a roughly humanoid shape made of glowing particles. The gaseous being had no solid form but could manipulate matter through electromagnetic fields. "Course plotted and ready, Captain," Vorth said in a voice that sounded like wind through metal pipes. "We can reach the coordinates in 6 standard hours if we push the engines to maximum." Morrison turned to face his weapons specialist, who sat at the tactical station. Kresh was a reptilian being with scales that changed color based on his mood. Right now, those scales showed deep red streaks, which meant the warrior was nervous. "Kresh, what do our weapons look like against something that size?" Morrison asked. The reptilian hissed softly before answering. "Captain, our plasma cannons would barely scratch the hull of a ship that massive. If the stories are true about its defensive capabilities, we would need a full battle fleet to even damage it." Morrison sat down in his captain's chair and considered their options. The Lucky Strike was a good ship, but it was built for salvage work, not combat. They had basic shields and light weapons for dealing with pirates or hostile wildlife. Against the legendary terror ship, they would be like insects attacking a mountain. But the potential payoff was beyond imagination. If they could successfully board and salvage even a small portion of the technology, they would be rich beyond their wildest dreams. The human technology aboard that ship was centuries ahead of anything the current galactic civilizations could produce. "Set course for the coordinates," Morrison ordered. "All crew to stations. We are going to make history today." The Lucky Strike turned toward deep space and engaged its faster-than-light engines. The stars outside the windows shifted from points of light to streaming lines as the ship entered hyperspace. Morrison felt the familiar vibration through the deck plates as the ship pushed against the fabric of space itself. 6 hours later, they dropped back into normal space in a region between star systems where no light from any sun could reach them. The space around them was black as death, except for the distant glow of faraway galaxies. Their sensors immediately detected the massive energy signature they had been tracking. "There," Vorth said as the navigation sensors locked onto their target. "Distance is approximately 50,000 kilometers and closing." Morrison stood up and walked to the main view screen. At first, he could see nothing but empty space. Then, the computer enhanced the image and highlighted the target. What he saw made him step backward in shock. The ship was enormous beyond anything he had imagined. It stretched across space like a metal mountain, floating in the void. The hull was dark gray with strange markings along its sides that seemed to pulse with faint blue light. Weapon ports dotted the surface like the eyes of some giant predator. The ship was easily 10 times larger than the biggest vessels in the current galactic fleet. "Scan for life signs," Morrison ordered. Zixtal worked at her station for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Captain, the readings are strange. There are faint biological signatures deep inside the ship, but they are not active. The computer cannot determine if they are alive or dead." "What about the power systems?" "Multiple fusion reactors are operating at low power. Artificial gravity is functioning throughout the ship. Life support systems are active in several sections. This ship is definitely not dead, Captain." Morrison studied the massive vessel on the screen. According to the legends, this was humanity's final warship, the last remnant of a species that had terrorized the galaxy centuries ago before being wiped out by a coalition of alien races. The humans had been aggressive and violent, expanding across space and conquering everything in their path. This ship was supposed to be their ultimate weapon. But if the ship was still functional, did that mean there were still humans aboard? The thought sent chills down Morrison's spine. Every child in the galaxy grew up hearing stories about the humans. They were described as brutal warriors who showed no mercy to their enemies. Their technology was far beyond anything the current civilizations could understand or replicate. "Captain, we are receiving a signal," Vorth announced. Morrison turned to face the communications station. "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be an automated transmission. The ship is scanning us with some kind of sensor array I have never seen before." The lights on the bridge flickered for a moment, and several control panels displayed error messages. Whatever technology the human ship was using, it was interfering with their own systems just by scanning them. "Should we return the scan?" Zixtal asked. Morrison thought for a moment. If they scanned the ship, it might be interpreted as a hostile act. But if they did nothing, they would learn nothing about what they were facing. Passive scans only, he decided. "I want to know everything we can learn about that ship without triggering any defensive systems." For the next hour, they studied the massive vessel from a safe distance. The ship appeared to be in some kind of standby mode. Its weapons were powered down but ready to activate at a moment's notice. The hull showed signs of ancient battle damage that had been repaired with patches of different metal. "Captain, I am detecting docking ports along the lower hull," Zixtal reported. "They appear to be designed for ships much smaller than ours. We might be able to dock and board." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment of truth. They could turn around and leave, reporting the ship's location to the galactic authorities and collecting a finder's fee. Or they could take the greatest risk of their lives and attempt to board the most dangerous ship in known space. "Bring us in slowly," Morrison ordered. "All crew to battle stations. If this goes wrong, I want us ready to run." The Lucky Strike approached the enormous vessel like a tiny fish swimming toward a sleeping whale. As they got closer, the true scale of the ship became apparent. Individual hull plates were larger than their entire vessel. The docking ports looked like caves in the side of a metal cliff. "Docking port is responding to our approach," Vorth announced. "The ship is extending an airlock to meet us." Morrison watched in fascination as machinery that had been dormant for centuries suddenly came to life. Massive doors slid open in the hull and a flexible tunnel extended toward their ship. Whoever had built this vessel had designed it to operate automatically even after its crew was long gone. "Docking sequence complete," Zixtal reported. "We have a solid connection, and atmosphere is equalizing." Morrison stood up and checked his sidearm. The rest of his crew did the same. Whatever they found inside that ship, they needed to be ready for anything. "Remember, we are salvagers, not soldiers," Morrison told his crew. "Our goal is to get in, take what we can, and get out alive. If we encounter anything we cannot handle, we retreat immediately." They made their way to the airlock, where they could see the entrance to the human ship through the transparent aluminum door. The passage beyond was dimly lit, but appeared to be in good condition. Morrison took a deep breath and pressed the control to open the airlock. Whatever happened next would change their lives forever. They were about to become the first beings in centuries to board the legendary drifting terror. The door slid open and they stepped into the unknown. Morrison stepped through the airlock and immediately felt the difference in gravity. The human ship pulled him down with a force that was stronger than what his own vessel generated. His crew followed behind him, their various alien forms adapting to the heavier environment in different ways. The corridor they entered was massive beyond anything Morrison had expected. The ceiling stretched high above their heads, at least 4 times taller than necessary for beings of their size. The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, glowing faintly with blue energy. "The air is breathable," Zixtal announced after checking her scanner. "Oxygen, nitrogen, and trace gases in proportions suitable for most known species. The life support systems are functioning perfectly." Morrison nodded and began walking down the corridor. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space, creating an eerie sound that seemed to go on forever. Emergency lighting panels provided dim illumination along the walls, casting long shadows that moved as they passed. "Captain, these corridors are designed for beings much larger than any known species," Vorth observed. The gaseous being could adjust his size easily, but even he seemed small in the enormous passageway. Kresh moved with the careful steps of a trained warrior, his scales showing nervous yellow patterns. "The humans must have been giants compared to us. No wonder the other species feared them." They walked for several minutes through corridors that all looked the same. Morrison began to worry they might get lost in the maze of passages when suddenly the lights ahead of them brightened. A holographic display materialized in the air directly in front of them, showing symbols that none of them could read. "What is that?" Morrison asked, stopping abruptly. Zixtal approached the display and studied it with her compound eyes. "It appears to be some kind of navigation system. The symbols are unknown, but the layout suggests it is showing us a map of the ship." The hologram changed as they watched, showing their current location as a blinking dot and highlighting a path forward. It was clear that something aboard the ship was aware of their presence and trying to guide them somewhere. "Should we follow it?" Vorth asked. Morrison considered their options. They could explore randomly and hope to find something valuable, or they could trust whatever intelligence was operating the ship to lead them to something important. Neither option seemed particularly safe. "We follow the path," Morrison decided, "but stay alert. If this is a trap, we need to be ready to run." They followed the highlighted route through corridors that gradually became more elaborate. The walls showed signs of advanced technology built into their structure. Panels that might have been computer terminals were embedded in the surfaces, all dark and inactive. Occasionally, they passed doorways that were sealed shut, hiding whatever lay beyond. After 20 minutes of walking, they entered a vast chamber that took Morrison's breath away. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness, high above them. Banks of computer equipment lined the walls, all humming quietly with power. In the center of the room was a raised platform with what appeared to be a command chair. "This must be the bridge," Morrison said in amazement. As soon as he spoke, the chamber came alive. Lights activated throughout the room, revealing the true scope of the human technology. Computer screens flickered to life, displaying information in the strange human symbols. A deep humming sound filled the air as massive systems awakened after centuries of sleep. Then they heard the voice. "Identification required," the voice said in a language none of them understood. It was clearly artificial, generated by some kind of computer system, but it carried an authority that made them all freeze in place. The voice repeated the same phrase several times before switching to different languages. Morrison recognized some of them as ancient dialects used by various galactic species thousands of years ago. Finally, the voice began speaking in modern galactic standard. "Unknown life forms detected aboard UES Leviathan. State your purpose and authorization codes." Morrison stepped forward, his heart pounding. "My name is Captain Jake Morrison of the salvage vessel Lucky Strike. We responded to automated distress signals and came to offer assistance." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "No distress signals have been transmitted from this vessel. Scanning biological signatures. Species unknown. Technology level primitive. Threat assessment in progress." Suddenly, small spherical drones emerged from hidden panels in the walls. They moved silently through the air, circling around Morrison's crew and scanning them with beams of red light. Kresh reached for his weapon, but Morrison quickly signaled for him to stop. "We mean no harm," Morrison said loudly. "We are peaceful salvagers investigating reports of a derelict vessel." "Derelict status incorrect," the voice replied. "UES Leviathan is operational and maintaining standard patrol protocols. You are trespassing in restricted human space." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "Human space? Are there humans aboard this ship?" Another long pause. "Classified information. Biological signatures detected in medical bay. Awakening procedures initiated." The computer screens around the chamber began displaying new information. Morrison could not read the symbols, but the graphics showed what appeared to be medical readouts and life support data. Something deep within the ship was coming online. "Captain, we should leave," Kresh hissed, his scales now showing bright red alarm colors. But before Morrison could respond, the sealed doors around the chamber began opening. They heard the sound of footsteps echoing from multiple corridors, moving toward their location. Whatever the ship's computer had awakened was now approaching. "Atlas, report status," a new voice called out from one of the corridors. This voice was not artificial. It was organic, female, and speaking in the ancient human language. Morrison's crew moved closer together as three figures entered the chamber. They were bipedal beings, roughly the same height as Morrison, but with different proportions. Their skin was pale, and they had hair growing from their heads in various colors. They wore uniforms of dark blue material with strange insignia. The female who had spoken was clearly their leader. She moved with military precision, and her eyes quickly assessed the alien visitors. The other two humans flanked her, one male and one female, both carrying what were obviously weapons. "Atlas, who are these beings?" the leader asked. "Unknown. Species claiming to be salvagers, Commander Hayes," the computer voice replied. "They boarded through docking port 7 approximately 37 minutes ago." Commander Hayes studied Morrison's crew with obvious suspicion. "Salvagers? This ship is not salvage. We are still very much alive." Morrison raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Commander, We had no idea anyone was still aboard. This ship has been drifting in space for centuries. The galaxy believes humanity is extinct. The human commander's eyes widened in shock. Extinct? What do you mean, extinct? The human homeworlds were destroyed over 300 years ago, Morrison explained carefully. The Galactic Coalition declared humanity a threat to galactic peace and launched a coordinated attack. All human colonies were eliminated. The three humans looked at each other with expressions of horror and disbelief. The male human stepped forward, and Morrison could see anger building in his features. "You are saying our entire species was wiped out?" the male asked. "Dr. Collins, remain calm," Commander Hayes ordered. She turned back to Morrison. "What species are you? Which of you participated in the destruction of our worlds?" Morrison felt the tension in the room growing dangerous. "I am not from any of the species that attacked humanity. My people are salvagers from the outer rim. We had nothing to do with the war." The third human, a female with mechanical devices attached to her uniform, spoke for the first time. "Commander, if what they are saying is true, then we are the last humans in the galaxy." Commander Hayes closed her eyes for a moment, processing the information. When she opened them again, Morrison could see pain and determination in equal measure. "Atlas, scan the local star charts. I want to know what has happened to our territory." The computer screens around the chamber displayed star maps that meant nothing to Morrison, but clearly devastated the humans. Commander Hayes stared at the displays as red markers appeared over dozens of star systems. All human colonies showing, as occupied by coalition species, Atlas reported. No human life signs detected in any previously claimed territory. Dr. Collins sat down heavily in one of the command chairs. "Lisa, we are alone. Everyone we knew, everyone we loved, they are all gone." Commander Hayes straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Morrison. "Captain Morrison, you said you responded to distress signals? What kind of signals?" Morrison hesitated. "Energy readings that suggested a ship in distress. But we now realize those were probably just your normal operations." "Atlas, why would our energy signature appear as a distress signal to primitive sensors? The ship has been operating on minimal power for 312 years, Atlas replied. "Many systems have been cycling on and off to conserve energy. This would create irregular power signatures that might be interpreted as damage or malfunction." Morrison stared at the tactical display showing the approaching fleet and felt his mouth go dry. "Commander Hayes, my ship cannot outrun those cruisers. If we undock now, they will destroy us before we can jump to hyperspace." Commander Hayes turned to face him, her expression calculating. "Then you and your crew had better stay aboard until this is over. Atlas, seal all external airlocks and activate defensive protocols." The ship around them began to change. Morrison could hear massive machinery coming online throughout the vessel. The lighting shifted from the dim emergency illumination to full operational brightness. The deck plates vibrated with power as systems that had been dormant for centuries awakened. "Commander, I am detecting Admiral Torex aboard the lead vessel," Atlas announced. "He is broadcasting on all frequencies demanding our immediate surrender." "Doctor." Collins moved to a communications station and activated the speakers. A harsh alien voice filled the bridge, speaking in the clicking language of the insectoid Vreen species. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Torex of the Galactic Coalition Navy. You will power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your complete destruction." Commander Hayes smiled coldly. "Atlas, respond on all frequencies. Tell the Admiral that humanity declines his generous offer. Morrison watched in fascination as Commander Hayes transformed. From a confused woman awakening from centuries of sleep into a professional military officer. Her movements became precise and confident as she took command of her ship. "Amy, I need full power to weapons and shields in 5 minutes," Hayes ordered. Engineer Rodriguez worked at multiple stations simultaneously, her hands moving across controls with practiced efficiency. "Fusion reactors coming online now. Quantum shields will be operational in 3 minutes. All weapon systems are charging." Dr. Collins took position at what Morrison assumed was a medical monitoring station. "Lisa, our bodies have been in stasis for over 3 centuries. We should not be pushing ourselves into combat without proper medical evaluation." "Pete, we can worry about our health after we deal with the fleet trying to kill us," Hayes replied. She turned to Morrison. "Captain, I need to know about that fleet. What kind of weapons and shields do modern coalition ships carry?" Morrison tried to organize his thoughts. "Standard plasma cannons, photon torpedoes, and particle beam weapons. Shield technology is based on electromagnetic barriers with kinetic, dampening fields. But Commander, that is a full battle fleet out there. Even a ship this size cannot fight 20 cruisers alone." Commander Hayes looked at him with an expression that was almost pitying. "Captain Morrison, you have no idea what this ship is capable of. Atlas, show our guests what the Leviathan was built for." The tactical display changed to show a detailed schematic of the ship they were aboard. Morrison gasped as he realized the true scope of the vessel. What he had thought were cargo bays were actually massive weapon installations. The hull sections he had assumed were armor plating were actually shield generators that could project defensive barriers far beyond the ship itself. "The UES Leviathan is a Titan-class dreadnought," Atlas explained in his artificial voice. "She carries enough firepower to destroy entire star systems and defensive capabilities that make her effectively invulnerable to conventional weapons." Zixtal clicked her mandibles nervously. "Captain Morrison, this vessel is not just a ship. It is a mobile fortress designed for warfare on a scale we cannot comprehend." The communication system crackled again as Admiral Torex transmitted another message. This time he was speaking in Galactic Standard, clearly intended for any aliens who might be aboard the human ship. "Attention, alien vessel. You are harboring representatives of a species that was declared extinct for the safety of all galactic civilization. Surrender the humans immediately, and you will be allowed to depart unharmed." Morrison felt Commander Hayes looking at him expectantly. After a moment, he realized she was waiting for him to respond to the Admiral's offer. "I am not abandoning anyone," Morrison said firmly. "My crew and I will stay aboard this ship." Hayes nodded approvingly. "Amy, status report." "All systems operational, Commander," Rodriguez announced. "Quantum shields at maximum power. Main batteries charged and ready to fire. We have enough power to maintain full combat operations for approximately 6 hours. Time to intercept. The Coalition fleet will be in weapons range in 2 minutes. Commander." Hayes settled into the captain's chair and activated controls that Morrison had not even noticed before. "Atlas, battle stations, all crew to combat positions." Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as the ancient war machine prepared for its first battle in over 3 centuries. Morrison and his crew moved to what appeared to be observer positions along the rear of the bridge, staying out of the way of the human crew. "Atlas, open a channel to the Coalition fleet," Hayes ordered. "Channel open, Commander." Hayes stood up and faced the main communications array. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded ships in combat before. "Admiral Torex, this is Commander Lisa Hayes of the United Earthship Leviathan. You have entered human space and threatened a human vessel. You have exactly 60 seconds to reverse course and depart this system before I consider your fleet a hostile force. The response from Admiral Torex was immediate and filled with anger. Human, your species was eliminated for the greater good of galactic civilization. You have no right to exist and no claim to any territory. Prepare to join your extinct people. Hayes sat back down in her command chair. Atlas, the Admiral has made his choice. Target the lead vessel and prepare to demonstrate why humanity was feared. Morrison watched the tactical display as targeting systems locked onto the Coalition flagship. The Leviathan's weapon arrays began moving into firing position with mechanical precision that spoke of advanced automated systems. Commander, they are powering weapons, Rodriguez reported. Multiple targeting locks detected. They intend to open fire. Let them fire first, Hayes said calmly. I want there to be no question about who started this fight. The tactical display showed energy signatures building aboard the Coalition ships as their weapons charged. Morrison counted at least 40 separate weapon systems, all aimed at the Leviathan. When they fired, the combined assault would be enough to destroy any known vessel. Incoming fire, Atlas announced. The main screen switched to a visual display showing the space around their ship. Hundreds of energy beams and projectiles streaked toward them from the Coalition fleet. Morrison instinctively braced for impact, but Commander Hayes remained perfectly calm. The weapons struck the Leviathan's shields and simply disappeared. The quantum barriers absorbed the incoming fire without even flickering. It was as if the Coalition weapons were toys being fired at a mountain. No damage to shields, Rodriguez reported. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defensive grid. Admiral Torex's voice came over the communications system, filled with disbelief. Impossible. No ship can withstand that level of concentrated fire. Commander. Hayes smiled. Atlas. Return fire. Target their weapons and engines only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Morrison watched in amazement as the Leviathan's weapon systems activated. Beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself lanced out from the human ship and struck the Coalition vessels with surgical precision. Ship after ship in the enemy fleet went dark as their weapons were destroyed and their engines disabled. Admiral, this is your final warning, Hayes transmitted. Order your remaining ships to withdraw, or I will stop being merciful. But Admiral Torex was apparently too shocked to respond coherently. Instead, the remaining functional Coalition ships began firing again, this time targeting the Leviathan with everything they had left. They are not going to stop, Dr. Collins observed. Hayes nodded grimly. Then we finish this. Atlas target, their main hulls. I want those ships completely disabled but with minimal casualties. The Leviathan's weapons fired again, this time with devastating effect. The Coalition ships began exploding one by one as their power cores were deliberately overloaded. Morrison realized that the human weapons were not just destroying the ships, they were doing it in a way that allowed the crews time to escape in life pods. Within minutes, the entire Coalition fleet was either destroyed or completely disabled. The space around the Leviathan was filled with debris and escape pods carrying the survivors of Admiral Torex's task force. Admiral Torex, this is Commander Hayes, she transmitted. Your fleet has been neutralized. I suggest you use this time to reconsider your position on humanity's right to exist. The response came from one of the escape pods. Admiral Torex's voice was filled with fear and confusion. How? How is this possible? Our intelligence said human technology was only marginally superior to our own. Hayes looked at Morrison before answering. Admiral, your intelligence was based on encounters with human colony ships and exploration vessels. You have never faced a human warship designed specifically for combat. The Leviathan was built to fight entire fleets alone. Morrison stared at the tactical display showing the destroyed Coalition ships. In less than 10 minutes, 3 humans operating a single vessel had defeated a force that could have conquered most star systems. The legends about human military capability had apparently been understated. Supreme Admiral Vorthan's voice echoed across the bridge of the Leviathan with the authority of someone who commanded the largest military force in the galaxy. Human vessel, you are surrounded and outnumbered 100 to 1. This is your final opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate the full might of the Galactic Coalition. Commander Hayes studied the tactical display showing the massive fleet arranged in attack formation around their ship. Morrison could see her calculating odds and considering options with the cold precision of a career military officer. Atlas, give me a full analysis of their fleet composition and probable attack patterns, Hayes ordered. Scanning complete, Commander. The Coalition fleet consists of 12 Titan-class dreadnoughts, 40 heavy cruisers, 60 destroyers, and 25 support vessels. Their standard battle doctrine will be to surround us and attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Dr. Collins looked up from his medical station with concern. Lisa, even if we can win this fight, the cost will be enormous. That fleet represents thousands of lives. Hayes turned to face him. Pete, they came here to finish what they started 3 centuries ago. They want to complete the genocide of our species. I will not let that happen. Morrison stepped forward. Commander, there might be another way. What if we try to communicate with them? Explain that humanity is not the threat they believe we are. Captain Morrison, they just watched us destroy an entire battle fleet in minutes, Hayes replied. Do you think they are in a mood for diplomatic conversation? Amy Rodriguez worked frantically at her engineering station as more Coalition ships continued to arrive. Commander, they are bringing in reinforcements faster than we can engage them. I count at least 20 more dreadnoughts jumping into the system. The tactical display updated again, showing the true scope of the force arrayed against them. Morrison realized he was witnessing the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Every major species in the Coalition had contributed ships to this fleet. Atlas, how many ships are we facing now? Hayes asked. Total vessel count is now 215 ships. Additional reinforcements are still arriving. Morrison felt a chill as he understood what was happening. Commander, they are not just trying to destroy this ship. They are trying to ensure that humanity can never threaten the galaxy again. Hayes nodded grimly. The same fear that drove them to destroy our worlds is driving them to bring everything they have against one ship. Atlas, begin charging the main weapon array. Morrison had been aboard the Leviathan for hours, but he had not yet seen the ship's primary weapons. As Atlas activated the charging sequence, he felt the deck plates vibrate with enormous power. Energy readings on the displays climbed to levels that should have been impossible. Commander, charging sequence will require 8 minutes to complete, Atlas reported. During that time, our defensive systems will be operating at reduced efficiency. Time. Until they attack? Supreme Admiral Vorthan is coordinating his fleet. Estimated time to weapons range is 6 minutes. Hayes made her decision quickly. All power to shields. We hold our position and absorb their first attack while the main guns charge. Rodriguez began rerouting power systems throughout the ship. Quantum shields at maximum power. All secondary weapons online and ready to engage. Morrison watched Supreme Admiral Vorthan's fleet begin their attack approach. The coalition ships moved with the coordination of a force that had trained together for decades. They spread out to attack from every possible angle, ensuring that the Leviathan could not concentrate its fire effectively. "Incoming transmission from the coalition flagship," Atlas announced. "Put it through," Hayes ordered. Supreme Admiral Vorthan's image appeared on the main screen. Morrison had never seen a member of his species before. The Admiral was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. His uniform was covered with decorations that spoke of a long military career. "Commander Hayes, I am Supreme Admiral Vorthan of the Galactic Coalition Defense Force. I want you to understand that I take no pleasure in what must happen here today." Hayes stood up and faced the screen. "Admiral, then do not do it. Order your fleet to withdraw, and we can discuss this situation like civilized beings. Commander, your species represents an existential threat to every other form of life in this galaxy. Your technology is too advanced and your military capabilities are too dangerous. We cannot allow humanity to rebuild." "Admiral, there are 3 of us left," Hayes said, gesturing to her small crew. "We are not rebuilding an empire. We are just trying to survive." Supreme Admiral Vorthan's expression remained unmoved. 3 humans with access to technology that could conquer the galaxy. "Commander, surely you understand why we cannot take that risk." Morrison stepped into view of the screen. "Admiral, I am Captain Jake Morrison. I am not human, and neither is my crew. We have been aboard this ship for several hours, and the humans have shown us nothing but cooperation and restraint. They are not the monsters you believe them to be." The Admiral studied Morrison with obvious surprise. "Captain Morrison, you have been deceived by their apparent reasonableness. Human history shows a consistent pattern of aggression and expansion. Every species they encountered was either conquered or destroyed." Dr. Collins moved to stand beside Hayes. "Admiral, what you call aggression was actually self-defense. Humanity was attacked first in every major conflict. We were expanding because our homeworld was dying and we needed new places to live. That is not what our historical records indicate," Admiral Vorthan replied. "Your historical records were written by the species that destroyed us," Hayes said angrily. "Of course they portray humanity as the aggressor. It justifies their genocide." Morrison could see that the conversation was not going to change anyone's mind. Both sides believed they were fighting for survival, and neither was willing to back down. "Admiral, you have 200 ships against 1, Morrison said. "Can you not afford to show mercy?" "Captain Morrison, that 1 ship just destroyed an entire battle fleet without taking damage. The mathematical advantage means nothing when facing technology we cannot match." Rodriguez looked up from her station with alarm. "Commander, they are beginning their attack run. All coalition ships are moving to weapons range." Hayes returned to her command chair. "Admiral Vorthan, I hoped we could find a peaceful solution to this situation. Since that appears to be impossible, let me be very clear about what happens next. If your fleet attacks this ship, I will defend myself and my crew with every weapon at my disposal." "Commander, we understand the risk." "Admiral," Vorthan replied, "but some risks must be taken for the greater good." The transmission ended, and Hayes turned to her crew. "Atlas, status on main weapon charging? 4 minutes to full charge, Commander. Amy, can you give me more speed on the charging sequence?" Rodriguez shook her head. "Not without risking a catastrophic overload, Commander. The main guns have not been fired in over 3 centuries." Morrison watched the tactical display as the coalition fleet closed in around them. The ships moved with mathematical precision, creating overlapping fields of fire that would focus enormous firepower on the Leviathan from every direction. "Atlas, they are going to hit us with everything at once," Hayes observed. "Can our shields handle that level of coordinated fire?" "Unknown, Commander. The Leviathan has never faced a concentrated attack from over 200 ships simultaneously." Morrison realized he was about to witness either the most one-sided massacre in galactic history or the most incredible military victory ever achieved. Either way, the outcome would determine the future of human existence in the galaxy. "Incoming fire," Atlas announced. The space around the Leviathan erupted in energy as over 200 ships opened fire simultaneously. The quantum shields flared with brilliant light as they absorbed more punishment than any defensive system had ever been designed to handle. "Shield strength at 60% and falling," Rodriguez reported. "We are taking more damage than our regeneration systems can handle." Hayes gripped the arms of her command chair as the ship shook under the massive bombardment. "How much longer until main guns are ready?" 2 minutes, Commander. "Atlas, target the Coalition flagship and as many dreadnoughts as possible. When we fire, I want to remove their command structure." Morrison watched the shield readings continue to drop as the Coalition fleet poured fire into them. At 40% shield strength, he began to worry that they might not survive long enough to return fire. "Commander, multiple shield generators are overloading," Rodriguez announced. "I am having to shut them down before they explode." "Do what you have to do, Amy." The Leviathan continued to absorb punishment that would have destroyed any other ship 10 times over. Morrison could see that Commander Hayes was right about one thing. This vessel had been designed specifically for warfare on a scale that the current galaxy could not imagine. "Main weapons charged and ready to fire," Atlas announced. Hayes leaned forward in her chair. "Atlas, fire." Morrison had thought he understood the power of human weapons after watching them destroy the first Coalition fleet. He was wrong. When the Leviathan's main guns fired, they did not just destroy their targets, they erased them from existence. Morrison watched Commander Hayes pursue the fleeing Coalition ships and realized he was seeing the same aggressive instincts that had made the galaxy fear humanity in the first place. The Leviathan moved through space like a predator chasing wounded prey, its weapons destroying ship after ship as they tried desperately to escape. "Commander Hayes, please stop," Morrison said urgently. "Those ships are no longer a threat to us." Hayes turned to face him, her eyes still filled with the cold fury of battle. "Captain Morrison, those ships came here to complete the genocide of my species. Why should I show them mercy when they showed none to my people?" Dr. Collins stood up from his medical station and moved to stand beside Morrison. "Lisa, listen. To yourself. You are talking about revenge, not justice." "Pete, they destroyed everything we ever cared about," Hayes replied. "Our families, our friends, our entire civilization. They deserve to pay for what they did." Morrison could see that the human commander was consumed by grief and anger that had been building for centuries. "Commander, I understand your pain, but if you continue this attack, you will be proving that the galaxy was right to fear humanity." Hayes paused in her pursuit of the Coalition ships. "Atlas, hold position. Maintain targeting locks, but do not fire unless I give the order." The Leviathan stopped its advance, floating in space surrounded by the debris of over 100 destroyed ships. The remaining Coalition vessels continued fleeing toward the edge of the system, apparently too terrified to even attempt a coordinated withdrawal. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her engineering station with concern. "Commander, We are receiving multiple hyperspace signatures. More ships are jumping into the system. Morrison felt his heart sink as the tactical display updated to show even more vessels arriving. But as he studied the new arrivals, he realized these were not military ships. They were exploration vessels, research ships, and diplomatic transports from dozens of different species. Atlas, identify the incoming ships, Hayes ordered. Scanning complete, Commander. The new arrivals appear to be civilian vessels and diplomatic missions from across the galaxy. I am detecting no military configurations among them. A new voice came over the communications system, speaking in Galactic Standard with the formal tone of a trained diplomat. UES Leviathan, this is Ambassador Chen of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. We request permission to approach and open negotiations. Hayes looked at Morrison with obvious confusion. Why would diplomats be coming here? Morrison studied the display showing the arriving ships. Commander, word of this battle has probably spread across the galaxy already. The diplomatic corps is trying to prevent a larger war. Atlas, put me through to Ambassador Chen, Hayes ordered. Channel open, Commander. Ambassador Chen, this is Commander Lisa Hayes of the United Earthship Leviathan. What exactly do you want to negotiate? Commander Hayes, we wish to discuss the possibility of establishing formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the Galactic Coalition. The events of today have demonstrated that your species still exists and possesses significant military capabilities. Dr. Collins moved to the communications station. Ambassador, this is Dr. Pete Collins, Chief Medical Officer of the Leviathan. Are you saying the Coalition is prepared to recognize humanity's right to exist? There was a long pause before Ambassador Chen responded. Dr. Collins, the Coalition Council is currently in emergency session discussing exactly that question. The demonstration of human military technology has forced us to reconsider our previous position. Morrison stepped forward. Ambassador Chen, I am Captain Jake Morrison. I have been aboard this vessel and can confirm that the humans are not the aggressive monsters they have been portrayed as. They have shown remarkable restraint, despite having every reason to seek revenge. Captain Morrison, your testimony is being taken into account by the Council. However, we must address the legitimate concerns that led to the original conflict with humanity. Commander Hayes sat down in her command chair, the fury of battle finally leaving her eyes. Ambassador, what exactly are those concerns? Commander, the primary concern is the advanced nature of human technology. Your weapons and defensive systems are centuries ahead of anything the Coalition possesses. Many species fear that humanity could easily conquer the galaxy if you chose to do so. Rodriguez looked up from her station. Commander, I have been monitoring Coalition communications. They are calling this ship the most dangerous weapon ever created. Hayes considered this information carefully. Ambassador Chen, how do we address those fears? We cannot make our technology less advanced. Commander Hayes, that is precisely what the Council is debating. Some members are calling for immediate military action to prevent human expansion. Others are suggesting that cooperation might benefit all species. Morrison realized they were at a critical moment in galactic history. Ambassador, what if humanity agreed to share their technology with other species? Instead of being a threat, they could help solve problems that face everyone. Captain Morrison, that is an interesting proposal. However, it would require guarantees that human technology would not be used for aggressive purposes. Dr. Collins spoke up again. Ambassador, what if we established a joint research station? Humans and aliens working together to develop technology. For peaceful purposes? Ambassador Chen's response showed genuine interest. Dr. Collins, such an arrangement might address many of the Council's concerns. However, It would require extensive negotiations and safeguards. Commander Hayes stood up and began pacing the bridge. Atlas, show me the status of our ship's systems, all. Systems operational, Commander. Damage from the recent battle has been repaired by automated systems. Fuel and ammunition reserves remain at acceptable levels. Hayes stopped pacing and faced the main screen. Ambassador Chen, I am prepared to discuss cooperation between humanity and the Coalition, but I want certain guarantees in return. What kind of guarantees, Commander? First, formal recognition that humanity has the right to exist and expand peacefully. Second, reparations for the destruction of our homeworlds and colonies. Third, the establishment of human territory where we can rebuild our civilization without interference. Morrison could hear urgent conversations in the background of Ambassador Chen's transmission as the diplomatic team discussed these demands. Commander, Hayes, those are significant requests that will require approval from the highest levels of the coalition government. However, I am authorized to begin preliminary negotiations. Rodriguez activated a new display showing ship specifications. Commander, I have been analyzing the coalition ships we encountered today. Their technology is actually quite impressive, just different from ours. If we combined human and alien science, we could achieve things neither of us could accomplish alone. Dr. Collins nodded in agreement. Lisa, cooperation could be the key to rebuilding humanity. We cannot do it alone with just 3 people. Hayes looked at Morrison and his crew. Captain Morrison, you and your crew have risked your lives to help complete strangers. Why should I trust that other aliens will be different from the ones who destroyed my people? Morrison thought carefully before answering. Commander, because the galaxy has changed in the 3 centuries since the war. Most of the current generation had nothing to do with the destruction of humanity. They have grown up hearing stories about human aggression, but they have never actually encountered humans. Ambassador Chen, are you prepared to guarantee the safety of human representatives during these negotiations? Hayes asked. Commander Hayes, you have my personal guarantee that any human diplomats will be given full protection and immunity under coalition law. Hayes made her decision. Very well, Ambassador. I am prepared to send Dr. Collins as our representative to the Coalition Council, but I want it understood that if any harm comes to him, this ship will hold the Coalition responsible. Morrison felt a wave of relief as he realized that diplomacy was finally replacing warfare. Commander, I volunteer to serve as an escort for Dr. Collins. My crew and I can provide security and cultural translation. Captain Morrison, that is an excellent suggestion, Ambassador Chen agreed. Your testimony about human behavior could be valuable to the Council. Rodriguez activated the ship's communication array. Commander, I am detecting hundreds of ships throughout the galaxy changing course toward this system. Word of humanity's return is spreading faster than we expected. Hayes studied the tactical display showing ship movements across local space. Atlas, how many species are represented in the incoming vessels? Scanning complete, Commander. I detect ships from 47 different species, including several that have never been allied with the Coalition. Dr. Collins looked up with excitement. Lisa, this could be the opportunity we need to rebuild relationships with the entire galaxy. Not just the Coalition. Morrison realized they were witnessing a historic moment. Commander Hayes, you have the chance to transform humanity's reputation from feared monsters to respected partners. Hayes sat down in her command chair and activated the ship-wide communication system. This is Commander Lisa Hayes to all vessels in this system. The United Earth ship Leviathan extends greetings to all species and declares our intention to pursue peaceful relations with